The particular interest that I have stemmed from my previous work as a probation officer and in various iterations within the criminal justice system. I wanted to talk about something that I was interested in, but also hopefully present something that would be interesting to other people. But importantly, kind of in between what I saw was the moralizing, pathologizing, and medicalizing of shoplifting. I felt that there was a missing perspective. There was a bit that never quite felt in place and was actually confirmed during my literature search, which again kind of didn't really take into account some of the factors as to whether in fact shoplifting did have social benefits. So clearly what I wanted to do was something more than just a criminological critique and direct it particularly at social innovation and social innovators. So I wanted a challenge. I wanted to challenge. So my intention was to problematize, preferring a disruptive approach to provoke different ways of thinking and doing. I tried to do it in what I consider to be an intellectually playful way, but with academic rigor. This study really does present a counterintuitive and countercultural response to an activity which is universally condemned as wholly negative and to be eradicated. So responses from this research, from friends, families, and colleagues, has ranged from, why are you trying to justify crime, to, couldn't you do something a bit more worthy, Bill? So you begin to experience some of that stigma that your cohort experience probably on an hourly basis. So proponents of social innovation explicitly seek to promote social good, whatever that is. Somebody might tell me one day. But I don't think have grappled fully with those who I identify as antisocial innovators. So, I had a sample of shoplifters and customers who operated and lived in the South and West Yorkshire regions of the United Kingdom, covering conurbations such as Sheffield, Wakefield, Doncaster, and any town in between. So the lens I chose was deliberately phenomenological. Try saying that when you've had a few pints. It was chosen to emphasize the importance of how individuals and groups make sense of their lived experiences and how they adapt their lives to these. Phenomenology for me was as much as a mirror as much as a lens, because it encouraged what I considered to be an unashamedly reflexive account of my work with this group of people. Because after all, your research is much as about you as it is about them. So my method, microethnography. It suited the small study group that I wanted. I'm not going to go into details on that, but there was one particular method which was a turning point in my research, which was called the docent method, which meant you traveled with people. I did bus journeys and walked to places with people, and it really did make a difference to the information and the data that I received. People showed me around. It actually also redressed some of that inherent imbalance of power between you as the researcher and those people as your subject. So what conclusion did I come to? Well, there's a surprise. Within this particular cohort, they clearly identified tangible benefits, social benefits to shoplifting. And these were some of the main findings. There's a reason why I've got a tin of corned beef up there. Many people living on subsistence levels regularly purchase stolen goods from shoplifters as customers. Necessities such as milk formula, nappies, personal hygiene products, and food like bacon, cheese, and corned beef were sometimes described as luxuries. Customers described how supplementing with these stolen goods was a better alternative to other means of providing for their families. And women spoke to me about extortionate borrowing rates and in some cases contemplating or actually resorting to prostitution. So the alternative is clear, which is the social benefit and which is the social disbenefit. So most of the participants in the study saw social benefit in the fact, although they had been excluded from school, they had been contained in hospitals or penal institutions, they clearly identified a sense of belonging as a motivator for their offending behaviours. But they interestingly used the words lifting or grafting, a very physical thing, synonymously with speaking of shoplifting as a form of employment that requires skills and effort and gives a sense of purpose to their lives. This final one, for me, was the most striking observation. And it really proved to me that within these neglected and marginalised groups, people do look after themselves. And it was really interesting to see one guy who'd had his elbow socket pulled out and being carried into a walk-in clinic for help. So they protected each other. So this slide, I'm hoping, is reasonably self-evident. Barbara Kruger utilises Descartes' I think, therefore I am, and she uses that dictum to show that where the hand is reaching out, presenting a strong desire to amass material possessions. So whether it's to purchase or steal, the intention is the same: to validate your existence through the acquisition of products, through advertising or social pressure. So what next? So I've always thought that social innovation, and I've heard it a few times this morning, is obsessed about fixing the world. And I didn't want to do that quite yet. I wanted to understand the problem better. And my approach did jar with some people who seemed to think that I should at least seek a solution. The remaining questions, I think there's a fruitful field of opportunities to advance the notion of antisocial behaviour and antisocial innovation, not as some kind of deviant hero, but to learn something from their worldviews and in turn work with them to work out of shoplifting. Reflecting on my career whilst doing this research, I realised that the fault line had existed in how social policy addressed this particular social problem through punishment or curative techniques. In my view, good social innovators are natural collaborators and will bring different perspectives to different social problems like this. And I believe that the research actually changed my mind from avoiding looking for solutions, but it actually impacted on me to think maybe the collaboration with particular groups is the way to bring them out of what is clearly an antisocial activity. So finally, building on this dissertation, I now believe that there is a platform to work collaboratively with such groups. The current work surrounding positive deviance, which I had researched, is a real step in the right direction, and I would like to pursue that further. But one of my purposes today as well is to look at you as social innovators and to challenge you. For those of you who are wondering what to research, don't stay in the safe zones, apart from if you actually fall foul of the University Ethics Committee. Don't just choose the worthy. After all, the similarities between my cohort and social innovators are remarkable. You and they are risk takers, often viewed with suspicion, seen as outsiders. Who better to explore this subject further than you? Thank you very much. Thank you.